Folks, thanks for joining me. I really look forward to making this video. I've made a lot of knife maker videos and a lot of videos about mechanisms. This was kind of special. The videos that I have been making usually have this one thing in common. It's all guys. This is rather unique. I really want to make this video about Gail Lunn. She's an exceptionally good knife maker, and she's sort of singular in her field. There are a few knife makers who are ladies around. Very few of them, however, are making folding knives. Delana comes to mind. She makes an excellent lockback. But Gail has ventured into some very complicated mechanisms, which sort of is my main interest. Gail had been making what would be called a dual action automatic as opposed to a double action. I know it's a fine point in nomenclature, but trying to keep things straight. Now, this would be what's generally called a double action, and particularly this, just as far as I know, only occurs in out the front. So this would be called a double action out the front, and abbreviated quite commonly DAOTF. So you push the button forward, the blade comes out, pull the button back, it goes in, okay? So this is a DAOTF. What Gail had been making were knives such as these. Okay, this is generally referred to as coming out the side, although I prefer out the bottom, but that's not the hill I want to die on. So this is called the out the side, but this knife would be called an automatic that is also a dual function, meaning you close the knife, you could feel compress the spring, and then when you open it, it's just a standard knife. This happens to be a liner lock, but it also has a function where you could release the spring, and it's an automatic. This one is a Vulcan. These are after the design of Matt Diskin, and this is a very slick knife. I'll tell you another slick one is the HK, and this is also the whole scale releases it. It's a liner lock, and the scale will release it. Very nice knife. This one here, same idea, liner lock, push it there. Okay. This is called a G-Force from China, liner lock. That's different. Okay. Now, this was designed by Anthony Marfollone of Microtech. And this one only, you're going to use the bolster. You're not going to use the whole scale. So it's liner lock, and it opens automatically like that. Now, this is a little bit different. This has a release button, okay, and it's sort of cryptic. It's hidden. And it's also liner lock, but you could, the thing is, you could open this knife, you know, just cryptically like the others, you know, because the button is hidden. It'll fly open because the release is there. I just wanted to show you this one because this was also a cryptic lock. It won't open because it is a lockback, and there's a special pivot. You could tell these are like that because they have a elongated hole for this screw, and you sort of just push with your fingers down and get this trapped in your palm this way, and that'll open. And this is one fashioned after the same pattern that I made, I put in the book. So this is not too pretty. I didn't even sharpen the blade. It's just a prototype for the other 1,000 that I'll make someday. Gail has a history of knife making that goes back to her marrying Larry Lunn, a very accomplished knife maker, and she became interested in what he was doing, so she went in the shop and she said, "Show me how to make knives." And he must be a very good teacher, and she has a lot of talent, because she started to make some pretty nice knives right away. And she relates a story that once she learned how to make a liner lock, this just opened up a whole vista of how to make knife mechanisms for her. I don't really see the connection, because a liner lock is not all that complicated as opposed to making a dual action. But that's the route she went. And as far as I know, she's the only person doing it. And I asked her, you know, what's it like being a woman knife maker? And of course, she did get a little bit of grief. Guys would come up to her table at the show and pick up her knife and say, you know, that's pretty good. But, you know, what they meant to say, well, that's pretty good for a girl. And then the times that her knife got best of show, that kind of quieted things down a little bit. So I'm really impressed by Gail's ability, and also the way she handles the sort of pretty much male-dominated field. And I would like to introduce you to her. And by the way, Gail's really not producing much double action automatics. She sort of got caught up in the assistant opener fever, so she's going that direction. But hopefully she'll start coming around to some of these fancy mechanisms. By the way, as far as I know, there's two ways to make a dual action. It's with a sear coming off the side, and then the other way is the sear slipping off the front of the spring. Gail said that she has used both methods. So it took quite a bit of coaxing on my part to talk Gail into doing this interview, because she does not want to be known as a woman knife maker. She wants to be known as a knife maker. So here's the interview I did. I hope you gals and guys enjoy it. What's it like to be a lady knife maker?
No different really than being any kind of a knife maker. It's a little difficult for women because they don't like dirty hands and big machines, but that can be overcome by anybody. We have a little bit different viewpoint of knives. Some of them come out a little bit fancier, a little bit feminine sometimes, but not always. And it's just as much fun for a woman as it is for a man to make knives.
And you started out making, I think, liner locks, and then we got into double action, dual action?
Yeah, I make liner locks, double action automatics, I make assisted flippers, I make some miniatures, I make whatever hits my fancy. I just like to make new things. I like the challenge.
Yeah. And you started because your husband was in knife making?
Yes, when I met him, he had been making knives for about 15, 20 years, and he started teaching me little by little. Hard at times, easy at others. You can clash in a knife shop together. But now he does artwork and I do knives strictly.
And you make jewelry beside?
No, I have some jewelry making equipment, but I prefer to make knives.
But you really doll up your knives like some of these assisted folders?
Some of them come out very fancy, and other ones are fairly plain. It depends on what I feel like doing at the time. My husband does the engraving, Larry Lunn. He does all the engraving on my knives. I like to make Some, as you see, can be very plain and fancied up with engraving. And you can have very utilitarian ones. This is what I carry, one of these. Very lightweight, easy to use. But I do like to make one-of-a-kinds. And some of them do come out very fancy, very feminine looking at times.
Okay. I hope you stay in knife making for a lot more years. You got beautiful stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what makes a good knife maker? Somebody who makes good knives. Gail is a good knife maker. And I want to say thanks to Gail for sharing with us. I just want to recap a few things. This push-button automatic, okay, form of a stiletto. Push the button, the blade opens, okay? Close it, you recharge the spring, and the blade gets held in, okay? Blade opens by pushing the button. This is a dual action. Opens like a regular knife. You push on the bolster, flies open, okay? This is a double action, okay? Push the button up, the blade comes out, pull it back, blade comes in. Also called DAOTF for short. This is a single action. Push the button, the blade comes out, and it's locked. You release the blade and you recharge the spring with the recharging handle, okay? Just a single action. This is a single action. Push the button, blade comes out. Recharge it with the handle on the side. It has a safety that catches this, and push it, comes out. Okay. And just to show you, there's some of these floating around. These are conversions of a regular buck, 110 or 112, and it works like a normal knife. And there's a sear in here, and the button releases it. Of course, this one I got cheap because I want to tear it apart and share that with you later, but I just thought I'd throw that in. This is sort of a hidden button. Dual action, okay? So the difference between a push button automatic and a dual action is the trigger release or sear on the automatic push button is on the blade. So the blade is held in. On this one, the sear or release is on the spring. So the spring is loaded, but won't fire until you release the sear. And otherwise it works like a normal knife. And that's that. I wonder what happened if you dry fire this thing. Whoa. That doesn't sound like a good idea. Okay, thanks a lot.